When you did the antenna setup for the 145.29 repeater, was there a thought of exactly the direction or gain in particular directions that you wanted, and did you measure that after you set your antenna up to see kind of where you were getting out, or did you just rely on feedback from people that used the repeater and how well they came in?
Around 1994 and 1995, there wasn't an awful lot around to use. Yes, first antenna that I installed was a commercial antenna that was appropriate for 153 megahertz. It was provided by Bud NA7A for the repeater, and we used it for a little while, and hardly anybody in Salem could get into the repeater very well. That indicated to me that Salem was actually, although the intended place to get into, it didn't really work all that great when the typical station just couldn't get in. So we were using powerful home stations, and the typical mobile couldn't get in properly. Second antenna was suggested by our antenna guru at the time, G7 Hustler antenna. It's all aluminum and comes in multiple sections. It's a pretty long antenna, and the G7 is well recommended. I think EHAM or somebody like that was saying, oh yeah, fantastic antenna, great performance, but seems to fall apart next time you have a storm. Well, storm came along and it fell apart. I didn't like that. The G7 was okay. It's omnidirectional, just vertical. Then tried other antennas, including the GP9 by Comet, and it worked a little bit better than the G7 actually, but didn't really have all that great a performance. And somewhere along the line I picked up on the DB224, and couldn't find a new one available. At that time you couldn't buy them. So it's an antenna that's been available. The typical life of the antenna is around 30 years, so there's quite a few of them even today around the valley surviving after like 30 years. These are 4-loop antennas. They have 4 loops going up a 22-foot pole. Now, the neat thing about these, they're a vertical antenna. Let me break. They are designed for repeater only. They make a lousy home station antenna. And so many people have tried to use them for their home stations, and they go, wow, it's a very disappointing antenna. Took a lot of trouble to put it up, and can't seem to make it work all that good. That's because the signal would be pointing into the dirt. The typical 224 is designed to go down a hill. These 224s you can look up on the internet. The full model number is a DB-224E, and that's the amateur-tuned 224. I understand that the Mexican folks have put together a new thing you can order that's the DB224. And so now it's available again, but the harness lasts about a year, according to the EHAM folks. Well, anyhow, these are directional verticals. You point all the loops the same way, and you get about 3 dB additional gain in that direction. It's pointed towards Salem, Richard. Now the neat thing is you get approximately the same performance to the north and south. Now the east is set up for a loss, and so we only have 3 to 6 dB gain towards Detroit on that antenna, but it's going into the dirt. You know, it's less than 2,000 feet elevation, and we have mountains that are 4,000 feet very soon after the repeater. So that antenna is really modeled for the area that it's serving. Does that sound reasonable there, Richard?
WB7AEA.
Yes, it does, and I'll get off and let this other gentleman ask his question. I was just looking at the antenna online. It looks like similar to the antennas you see on top of police stations and so on. And I was curious as to which direction you pointed it. I've actually seen the picture of the antenna. You have some pictures of your antenna outside your repeater. So I figured it was this kind of antenna. But the signal up and down the Willamette Valley is excellent, and the fact that you pointed at Salem is probably also why you get such a strong signal through certain gaps going to the coast too. So anyway, yeah, great information about how you're getting out. Up and down the Willamette Valley is excellent, and it's excellent here too. Anyway, I've got for the amount of money it says here, you're spending about $800 on these antennas, so I got to chip in a little money and help you finance some of this. KI7JAE.